Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the morning brief. Just started a few seconds late there, Burner. Thanks for asking, no. Good morning. Let's go down to the hack screen, if you will, and we'll get the main brief up. Okay, here we go. Biggest announcement of the day, officially 2 squatter members now, so we're up and running. Thank you for that. If you're interested in becoming a permanent member, I will go into more details with that later. As far as our standard, we have standard mission objectives for our tactical objectives for today. For our general education piece, we're going to talk defense stocks. I've got 6 of them pulled up here. I'll talk about whether I like them or not, and also give you an ETF option for defense stocks and kind of how those work. They're all a little bit different. So I have a defense background, so I think I have extra insight into that area. And then that's what we'll talk about for general investor education going in. And then afterwards, I've pre-populated some questions into the Q&A. So for Ace that just logged in, do you see the 4 questions there that are preloaded? So I'm kind of curious if folks see those or if you only see questions after you log in. So Ace, if you could answer that if you're ready to do so there. All right. What you see there is 4 questions about IRA/401k. So that's what, gotcha. Okay, well, we'll work more on that. So I will try to come up with a way so you can see those, but I put those in there and that's what I'll be talking to. So maybe it's just a reminder for myself, but we'll be talking about some IRA specifics. So I want you guys to ask IRA related questions from there and 401k stuff. All right, for the flow, we'll cover the market review, the headlines. For our long-term investments, there's our 6 names we talked about. We'll obviously go short-term into the day trading around the market open, and then we'll get into our Q&A after the executing the market open. Don't see any new names yet in the morning, but if you have any questions, there's the tech support line. You can contact the tech support line there. Okay, let's go over to ThinkPipes for the annual, where we are from an annual review. So there's our the big run up, obviously, to mid-February, the big drop down to March 23rd, and then the past 3 days we've kind of stayed above that 275 to 295 channel, and then Friday closed kind of strong. Obviously there were some issues this weekend, so we'll take a look at the particular how that might affect the market. All right, let's go to the how it looked into Friday's close. There's the big run up, so pretty happy with that. And then this morning, obviously they open up pretty early, down just a little bit. NASDAQ's actually up, but obviously a lot of social unrest. We'll get into that in the headlines this weekend as to how, if and how that would affect the market out there. So, all right, over onto the calendar. No big earnings that I saw today, so we'll just leave that as is and then press on over to cnbc.com for the headline review. So obviously the social unrest this weekend going through the United States, it's a big unknown on how that's going to play out. Again, I'll only talk to it through not a political slant here or talking about the issues itself, but just looking at the how is it going to affect the markets. And I don't know. Just refresh there just to make sure we're looking at the right numbers. So yeah, they've dropped a little bit from where I looked at them a little bit ago. So we'll see. Obviously, if the violence, peaceful protesting won't affect markets. That just addresses the issue. It's the violence piece of that. And if there's damage or it can affect retail, I saw a thing from Tim Cook, Apple CEO. He put out a pretty clear message, but it also is to the issue and where, Apple stands on that. But it also talked about they are closing some stores in the affected areas that have some violence. So, that there's a very, very small impact, nothing like COVID, but we'll see where it goes. First weekends of these things tend to be pretty violent. So during the week, I'm not sure we'll know much on how it's all going to play out, but next weekend or the coming weekend now is where I think it'll be more interesting to see the level of violence and destruction. Does it continue? Does it increase or decrease? So if it increases, that'd be significant. If it stays the same or decreases, I think then I don't think it'll have a big effect on the market. Okay, let me scroll down here through the names a little bit. Let's go around the world first. Off into the EU, see kind of split there. Off into Asia, kind of good news across the board. The Hong Kong situation's settling down a little bit, so a little more clarity there. So that was considered good news. We saw our numbers from Friday. As far as bonds, a little uptick there. That's actually a pretty big move. When you come into the 10-year, generally it moves less than a penny there. So the healing of the bond market and getting us back to some normality in the bond market is helpful, and also has a positive effect on stocks out there. Oil on Friday, if you remember, we pulled actually the chart. It had dropped for 6 or 7 straight days, and then it popped up pretty big on Friday to above 35. It'd be nice if oil held the 35 level. It really would. And then, of course, working towards the 40 level is really what we're looking for out there. And then we could see, it's a contrarian play, but if you're looking for a specific investable theme on the social unrest and the riots, generally that will drive some money into safety, and generally that's considered gold. So, you could take a look at the weapons stocks. American Outdoor Brands is one, Ruger's another, for folks that are buying weapons to defend themselves. So those sort of themes tend to play for a little bit during situations like this. Okay, back to the US and back to the headlines of the day. There we are. There you go. There's the Apple, Amazon, okay, Amazon's scaling back. That's pretty big because most of us are clicking away on Amazon almost every day to get things instead of leaving our house. So it's pretty convenient. So that's interesting. Long-term impact on earnings, not yet, certainly, but if it would continue. There's Tim Cook's email. If you've had any conversations of note with me, I think Tim Cook is one of the best CEOs out there, if not the best. And he's pretty much on point, or his staff, for coming up with the right responses for things like this. So always a good read. But yeah, there is a correlation between the protest and the lack of social distancing. You're right there, Predator. Is that going to make things worse because people are getting together? I don't know, but I think it's interesting. Okay, if you followed the markets in a while, there's a market investment theme out there called sell in May and go away, which means you sell everything on the 31st of May and then you come back in, I believe it's October, getting ready for the big retail season going into Christmas. That's because somebody wrote a PhD paper once and proved that. You can write a PhD paper and prove almost anything. You could take the minute market by market throughout the week. So 6.5 hours a day, 5 days a week, that's a whole bunch of minutes. And you could find the actual 1 minute that the market moves up over the past 100 years. And that would be factually correct, but strategically irrelevant. So, whatever, sell in May and go away. I guarantee you'll hear people talking about that, especially if we end up in the red today. Like, oh, you should have sold in May. So just so you know. All right. Here's an interesting one. Somebody actually sent this to me already this morning to get my thoughts on it. So and I have not read the article. I just saw the headline. So I don't know if this is a broad swath of CFOs that agree on this, or if this was cherry picked to support whatever their particular, somebody's looking for this conclusion. So they pick CFOs based off of that, which people can do. CFOs tend, and here's how I answered it this morning already, is CFOs tend to look at the numbers as they are. So physically, like real time, where CEOs and especially markets, I would say markets even further out than CEOs, look at what the numbers are going to be. So I think there's maybe a negative slant for a CFO versus a more positive slant for CEOs out there. So that's just my take. I haven't had time to read the article. Okay, 90% chance the market's going up. You see that every day. You see the positive and negative, so I don't put a lot into those. Yeah, the vaccine thing, I'm starting to think that I haven't looked, Vegas probably is laying odds on this, or at least on some apps out there. but certainly the thought of a vaccine is getting more likely towards the end of the year, I do believe. Okay, let's take it up to the big board at Schwab and talk about our defense stocks for today. The first one you hear me talk about is Boeing. In the Boeing market, what you'll see is you'll hear me talk about the two ways to win. They have their defense spread, and they also have their airplane making. We talked about there's two airplane makers out there. There's Boeing and Airbus. I also did ask the question, and my tech looked it up. As far as ship makers, there's 4 in the world, and none of them are U.S. So that was an interesting answer there. But as far as Boeing, you've got two ways to win, but there's issues with Boeing. Obviously, there's the 737 MAX issues. They gave it a pretty much negative connotation, and people are having trouble getting past that. So when you look at that chart, the stock's still a buy right here. I have it already quite a bit, actually. There was a buy of the century there when it got below 100. Maybe not buy of the century, buy of the decade. But where it is, I still think it's a clear buy here. You may have to be patient. Don't expect it just to go exploding back up anytime soon. Lockheed Martin, when you think best of breed and a pure defense play, Lockheed Martin to me is the hands down winner. I've flown their products, so I probably cannot say that I'm unbiased there because their products were amazing since I spent a couple decades on them. But you also look at the stock price, kind of reflects the fact that it's best of breed and the fact that it's already back almost to where it was mid-February. Going down to RTX, remember this is the old Raytheon, so you used to have RTN in your portfolio, now you have RTX. Again, I own this as well. Raytheon merged with United Technologies is why the new ticker there. But it's really reflective of the chart is reflective of the Raytheon stock, not the UTX over long term. Raytheon's a little bit different. They deal a lot more in expendables, like making missiles, things that get used, or if they don't get actually used, they have a shelf life associated with it. So I kind of like the high turnover part of Raytheon. So you think smaller contracts, but a lot more of them, sort of thing. Northrop Grumman is not one that I don't have any. I don't really look at Northrop Grumman. I don't consider it best of breed. I don't know specifically why not. It's just they've always kind of lagged the others, so I have not given them much thought. But those are the big four. AeroVironment, this is an example. So if you get out of the big names and you want to go into smaller defense names, this is one that I've been in. I was back in way when it was closer at the left-hand part of the chart. It was closer to 100. So it was a little bit of house of pain for a while, but it is one that I consider to be worth being in a portfolio. And it's because it's all UAVs or actually UASs out there. And they own, that's the mouse in the mousetrap. They own both. So they make UAVs and they also make the UAV defense, which if you've seen these systems, base defense in Afghanistan, you can have they all had fancy names. But basically, they have little radars that search for UAVs, and when they see them, they fire at them. It's a bullet on UAV. They can do bullet on bullet defense systems. So it's pretty impressive technology out there. And when you are in the middle of nowhere, Afghanistan, walking around one of these little bases, that's good to look up and see these towers at the edge of the base to know that, okay, if something's inbound, it's a pretty decent chance of it getting shot down. So again, it's a smaller name. There are probably, I don't know the number, but I would say 5,000, defense firms that are out there that are kind of small like this one. Maybe not 5,000. But if you kind of want to own the whole thing, you get into ITA, which is the iShares Defense ETF, which now you're owning the big and the small. And if you don't want to try to make any determination on the best in breed, you can just own the entire category. A lot of folks go that way, especially if you're active duty military and you don't really want, you're moving up in the ranks, you don't want anybody to say, hey, he or she has a stock in Raytheon, so therefore there's bias there or whatever. owning it all through an ITA is kind of the way to go. It's kind of like, look, I'm not showing any favoritism. And when you look at the chart itself, it really hasn't bounced back a whole lot. Kind of like the others haven't. So, you know, to summarize this, Boeing's held down intentionally, kind of the 737 MAX issue. It was supposed to go back into production. I saw a headline on that, I think, last week. So we'll see if it does. They also just had a bunch of layoffs. So that's good for the stock, negative for the headlines, right? Boeing gets hated again. But the best way, I think, if you can't make a determination, is own the index fund. Index fund does pay 2.2%. So pretty decent dividend to have across the board there. Okay, before we go on into the short-term names, let's go to the website on Chrome here. So we'll bring that up. Okay, just click the homepage there for a second. Double click it and see if it comes up. All right, I'll work on click OTOT now up there. So may have to do some work on the website here to get to the main page to come back up. There we go. So as I mentioned earlier, we have 2 official members of the squadron now. If you're looking to join, go to the OTOT now page, and at the top, hover over the home. You'll see, without clicking on it, it's okay, click on it, sorry. You'll see there's the academics that I built. So if you need more academics, there's where they're all hanging now. If you want to sign up to be a permanent member of the squadron, click join a squadron. You'll see the 3 different squadrons. We're only really working the morning brief right now. And there's a sign up today link down here. And then scroll up to the yellow airplanes. This is where you would sign up. Right now there's an early bird special for $25 a month. You can sign up for 1 month, 6 months, 1 year, or 2 year. Obviously, if you go with the longer signups, there's a bit of a discount. And if you win, if you already have months that you've won during the competition, or if you win today, once you sign up, then if you sign up for, say, 6 months, you pay for 5 and you actually get 7, you get your extra one on the backside. So as you win the competitions, you will simply add to your expiration date from there. So you can bring that down, and let's go back, check the markets real quick before we go short. Let's click this real quick. Okay. Okay, futures are in the red across the board there. So yeah, just holding just below even there. All right, back up to Schwab for the short names we'll take a look at. Not many earnings out on Monday. So not a lot of earnings movement, and I did not see any kind of wicked headlines for individual stocks. So we'll see what we come up with this morning. Click, yeah, there we go. So nothing, I don't have anything written. I normally keep a notepad that I have my names that I'm already taking a look at. Nothing really qualified for me. So if you see anything, throw it in the chat for us to look at. Otherwise, I'm just going to go across the big board up here. UGAS jumps out there to minus 10%. Again, that's the natural gas ETF if you're going to play that. I don't have any particular insight into that right now, so we won't touch that. Again, looking for things that have moved at least 5 to 7%. Okay, Virgin Galactic, that could be an interesting play. Obviously, we put a couple astronauts in space this weekend. So therefore, you could see a jump in, we'll see if that peels over into Tesla as well. But yeah, maybe the space names take back off after there's a renewed interest, you know, feel good story from there. Put SPCE over there, and this would be a long, of course. Previous close at 17, up to 18. No news, so that's just living off of the headline from SpaceX. All right, let's go to the next tab. So UGAS was down 10%. DGAS is the inverse of that, so that would make sense. It is up 10%. Axon Enterprise, a little bit low on volume, but let's take AAXN over on the tab. Not familiar. No news, gapping up. Don't have anything. Exxon Enterprise, don't have anything to know what they do. There's Sturm Ruger RGR. Let's put that over there. That could be an interesting play. Again, like I talked about right early, you could, this could affect retail to the downside, or it could affect weapon stocks to the upside. So Ruger, I'm surprised there isn't a headline saying, weapon sales up on social unrest. That's a pretty significant jump from 62 to 67. I have not had a whole lot of luck with the going into either Ruger or American Outdoor, which is the old Smith & Wesson, on headlines like this. So wouldn't put a lot into that, but we can put it up on the chart again. That would be a long. There's Tesla, a little bit of volume there, up a couple percent. Okay, let's go to the decliners. Only one that has enough volume is NVIDIA, and it's only gapping down 1%. So for the whole market kind of coming in, there's not a big name that's really gapping down. We can take a look at Abbott. I've been long that name. I'm not currently long it now. See what JP Morgan says here. Okay, we talked about the hierarchy of the medical world. You have your biotechs making new drugs, then you have your Pfizers of the world making the generics, and then on into the med tech space. So it's at 94, gone down to 92. It has kind of run up a lot. So pretty weak story for taking something short. If you were to take that short, put a big stop in, and that's one where you probably wouldn't get 3 R's, but you might feel comfortable in your trade. Yeah, Ace, we talked about that earlier with the Ruger, home defense, everybody, social unrest theme. That's one way to play it. All right, let's go to the next tab. Put Vista Outdoor, VSTO, at 9, gapping up over $1. That's a pretty decent move for no headline. It's kind of a sweetheart move though, but don't know what they do and don't know why. ADT is an interesting play. So let's click on, ADT. Okay, obviously home security. So there's another play you get from the social unrest. So pretty big move from 7 to almost 8. Volume's pretty light, but I like the theme. Let's, I want to take a look at it in FinViz. So let's come down to the Chrome. We're going to pull it up in FinViz and see how much, if this stock's been beaten up for a while, then this might be an interesting play for the day. Oh man, it's already run back up from 4. It's currently not profitable. That's why the PE is a dash, but the forward PE is profitable.
Now more than ever, you need technology you can rely on.
頼れる人ですよね。
I'm a Dell Technologies advisor.
Ich auch.
我也是。
moi aussi.
And if you're a small business, we're with you.
We are with you.
Estamos com você.
All right.
We want to help.
So we'll be right here.
At home.
Sorry about that. So yeah, ADT's kind of run up a lot, so I'm not sure it really has that much more room to run. I think it's already played out, unfortunately. But it's interesting to think that way. There's the Virgin Galactic again. Aerojet Rocketdyne has a piece of this, I'm sure. That's pretty low volume. And again, we're talking back to the launch there. I didn't necessarily specify that. Okay, let's look over at the last tab there. All right, not sure what Wrap Technologies is. Go ahead and click on that. Don't get much out of that headline. 645 gapping up almost $1. So not much to go off of there. Intellia Therapeutics, probably a biotech name. U.S. Auto Parts Network up 10%. So, okay, so yeah, Wrap Technologies is a non-lethal defense company. So when you think of that, think rubber bullets, tasers, probably maybe as advanced. At least we had them in the military. The microwave one, where you put the microwave out and make everybody uncomfortable in the crowd. It helps them decide to disperse and go on about their business. So that's kind of interesting, and I like the low point there. So, right. So that would be a long. It's already moved up quite a bit, but it's also a small dollar point, so it might move a little more. Okay, so there's some names out there. Let me recap. Space Long, that was the Virgin Atlantic. Space Theme, Ruger Long could be your defense theme. ADT, Abbott Labs would be a short. That's the only short I have on my list, meaning it's run up so far. It's probably going to come in. Plus the market's in the red today, and with negative headlines, you could see the market come in more. VSTO is a long. I'm not sure what we got to what VSTO was, or Wrap if you want to get into the non-lethal defense tech names. So with that, I'm going to. Okay, we got CGC play in there. We'll bring that up. So for mine, I will put in the chat. Actually, you can do that. I want to take the short. So ABT short with a 40-cent stop. Actually, go 50-cent stop. Okay. Yep. All right. So mine's in there. Let's go to the trading rules real quick. So back to the main sheet. Scroll down a little bit. Again, setting your R unit here. If you're new to the room, I see one new name in there. New to the room, this is the R unit that we're talking about. Set your risk, which determines your stop. I'm using a 40-cent stop on mine, and that will, there we go. Got 3 trades in there. That sets that determination. If you scroll up to the next one, again, you get whatever the market opens at. I am looking at maybe determining you can set when you want your trade to start, like a 3M, meaning minute 3. That may be too advanced. I don't know. And if win numbers increase in the room, it may be too much to score. But basically, you have to hold your entry point. You have to hold the stop, or you get the entry point. You have to hold your stop for the first 20 minutes, whether you're long or short, and not get stopped out. And then after 20 minutes, if you're in the green, i.e. you've made money in the trade, then it's how much money you made divided by your R. Get your total number of R units, which declares the winner. So that's what we have. Let's go over to ThinkPipes, and we'll set up our charts. Let's go ahead and put, it's ABT, sorry. My trade is ABT. We'll correct that in a minute. Short, and then we'll put WRTC up there, and we'll put CGC down at the bottom. Okay, go ahead and correct my trade to ABT. Okay, so right here we got 2 minutes before the open. So if you're not familiar with CGC, that's Canopy Growth. That is a pot stock name, if you will, Canadian firm, conglomerate now. They've been buying a lot of smaller firms. They ran up big, so without trying to guess Predator's thesis here, they've run up so much and then they've started to sell off, so kind of overpriced. I do think there is room to run in the marijuana theme from a state taxation perspective. So I think that will help push the legalization. New York's really pushing for it right now. Okay, so and then WRTC from Burner there was the Wrap Technologies going short. So that would be a fill the gap strategy, which generally we don't do. We do a long gap strategy, but we'll see how it works out. It's already in there. So that thesis there for fill the gap would be that it ran up fell off during the day. So we have our entry points established there. So again, I'm going short, so that was not a good move with the 40 cent stop for me. So it looks like the open is right here if you want to get the pencil out and draw. So for me, it looks like a 929 open, excuse me, 92. Sorry, it's not, it's this one right there. It's where it's fat, a little bit lower. So 92, oh, right there. 92.94. Go up just a little bit. All right, so 92.94 plus 30 cents is 29 or 93.34, which I already got stopped out of that. So, so disregard my trade. I'm already out. Let's take a look at the others. CGC was a short for 60 cent for 20 cent stop. All right, so the open on, if you can look the open up on there, we're going to pull the open on CGC. Kind of hard to tell from the smaller chart. Actually, go to cnbc.com. We'll get you an easier one, and then right there. Scroll up. All right, the open 1669. So 1669 on the open. So it'll be 1689 on the stop. So it looks like it went above 1690 there. So that's why I was considering, so CGC is busted. That's why I was considering you could pick when you actually start your trade, because it's a little better to start your trade around that 3rd minute where you get kind of the initial bop out of the way. So I may toy with the rules there a little bit today. So I'm out, CGC is out, and let's look at our other one, WRTC short. So let's pull the open there. $7.21 was the open, and it's a 40 cent stop going short. So that would be $7.61. It has to stay below that. Ooh, it looks like that held. So let's bring WRTC to the main screen. Okay. And let's put the, try to draw the 7.21 as the open. And then 7.40 cent. Yep, 7.61 is the upper stop. It's close enough. Gets in the ballpark, and then of course 3 times that will $1.20 drop down from 7.21 would be 6.01 would be the 3R stop to the downside. So there you go, Burner. You've got your trade alive. Again, it's a fill the gap trade, so we'll see if it works for you. I would anticipate, well, we'll see. All right, if you look at CGC, and this is why taking that trade a little bit later is helpful sometimes, because then you see you get the big rollover. So it went down almost 40%, or excuse me, 50 cents in that in the current minute, if you will, or the minute that just ended. So, you know, wait and being a little more patient, taking that trade and then setting that stop would be how you would want to do that. So interesting. And then let's see, let's put mine, what did I have? ABT short, put it up in the upper right. And it's not caring about that negative headline it had at all. So it's on the way up. So we'll leave those up and cooking. Let's go back to, I'm just going to talk about the markets real quick. We'll leave that screen up. Let's go back to see what's going on in the US market here. And then refresh, that's still showing futures. Okay, yeah, across the board, got Dow's down about half of it. Let's click the main headline there. Says Dow's down 100. I'll check it from somewhere else. Okay, Dow's down 0.47 and S&P's about even, and excuse me, Nasdaq's about even. S&P's down a quarter. Okay, so the market's not rolling over significantly going into the open. So good for the long terms out there. Other long-term plays you can take a look at. If you look at the left-hand side of the TD Ameritrade board, you'll see some names on the way up. DraftKings is a name we talk about quite a bit. While I'm doing that, if you can put those, oh, you can't put them in the chat, can you? Here, try to put those in the chat again. We're trying to put the questions that I have pre-populated in the into the chat instead of the Q&A. So for the IRA discussion coming up. Before we get to that, so DraftKings is up a little bit. Tesla, again, I saw popping up there towards the top. MMDF is a name we actually talked about the other day. That's a psychedelic name if you were on board for that. There's a big push out there for psychedelics to get legalized. Again, there was a show on Netflix that I think brought it to the forefront. It's kind of popping up here and there. That's a stretch for most of us to think, you know, LSD is going to ever get mainstreamed. I don't see it, but I don't know. We'll keep an eye on it. Siri Love is Southwest. RVVTF is another psychedelic name. FireEye, cybersecurity might float higher here a little bit, even though we're only really worried about physical security stuff. All right, see what's dropping down long term. Okay, click the negative. Northwest Bio down 22% today. Again, it's a small biotech name, so it's not uncommon for it to make a huge move like that. Pfizer dropping down. Don't know why. Something to take a look at. There's Canopy Growth down almost 6%. Looking at the chart, yeah, it's kind of holding lower. So whatever your thesis was there, Predator looks pretty smart. And then Target retail name. All right, click that so it's back in the green. So I'd much rather watch that throughout the day. Okay, so we're going to talk about some questions and the stuff in the chat. So I'll take the questions first. You know, that's interesting, Predator. So military stocks do better based on certain presidential party. My opinion is I don't think so. I'm sure there's a study out there, but with any study, as soon as you make a determination that something's better, then the market kind of evens that out. Because say if you would assume, okay, it's going to be better during Republicans, that's the assumption. So if that's the case, then would you, if everybody knew that, then it would kind of equal out because everybody would take that investment theme. So the names would run up before you could capitalize on it. So it kind of evens it out. That's why trading systems that go public can get kind of muted, if you will, the returns, because everybody's doing the same thing. But my opinion is no, it's really not. So when you think of, from my defense background, Republican administration, a little bit stronger in the spending, but when you get a Democratic administration, you can see some perceived weaknesses from the countries worldwide, which means you might see things starting to shoot off. So if you think of Clinton and Obama's administration, little tiny tiffs popping up that probably wouldn't pop up under a Republican administration. So with that, you see some more spending. And also, since it's kind of a theme that a traditional theme that Democrats are weak on defense, they also it also turns out to where there's some increased spending during those times to not look weak on defense. So it can be interesting how that can play out. But no, I don't think there's an investable theme there. I do think that the election will bring volatility, so kind of be ready for it, but not as much as you can necessarily go all in with the defense stocks. Okay, but you could go back and look at it, you know, when everybody thought Mrs. Clinton was going to get elected and Trump, ended up getting elected, the big reversal there in the market, if you wanted to know more. Okay, let's clear that one out. Okay, the drone companies, the only one I really follow is that AVAV, and I think they're best of breed out there. The bigger drones, military grade drones, are going to be made by the big four. Off the top of my head, I think the big, blanking on names, Predator and the MQ-9, MQ-1 names are made, I think, by Northrop Grumman, if I remember right, as well as the big daddies out there. But there's a lot of other companies out there. And you're right, thinking military. The civilian drone companies out there, I do know there's a French company called Parrot that, hey, there you go. A French company out there called Parrot that does trade through an ADR that you can get in on. That they were kind of the early adopter of the quad drone system, if you remember that. Did find a headline here from my tech that AeroVironment is actually the biggest drone manufacturer for the military, having sold literally tens of thousands of drones for the Pentagon over the past few decades. And it says that in addition to military, AeroVironment's also spinning up commercial drone businesses. So that's a 2017 article from the Motley Fool. So it's been a while. So, all right, we can stop talking about that. Let's go and close that question out. All right, how are the markets doing? Okay, bouncing up a little bit, so not quite as down as far as they were. So we'll see where the gain or where we go from there. All right, over to just checking WRTC short. Looks like it's holding there nicely and maybe even starting to move down. So just went into the green on your trade. So that's kind of nice. Abbott finally coming in, and Canopy Growth bouncing back a little bit. Let's check an upper right. Let's put SPCE. Okay, this was Virgin Atlantic to kind of see how they opened. Okay, actually sold off. That would have been a long, so that would not have worked. And VSTO. And again, that was going to be a long. We didn't really look very hard at it. That's popping up almost 20% there, so that'd be a heck of a move. Okay, let's put the SPY up here in the upper right. So there you can tell that the market is starting to climb here, almost back to even on the S&P 500. So we'll see. Canopy Growth moving back up there. Okay, going into the more educational stuff for the rest of it is talking about IRAs. I put 4 questions in the chat there. I'll try to find a way to put those over into the Q&A so they can be voted on what you want answered. But the different types of IRAs out there, almost everybody knows about your traditional IRA and your Roth IRA. Again, the limits, you can put in $6,000 a year per person. You have to have earned income of that amount to be able to put in. If you're over 50, you get another 1,000. So I get to put in 7,000 now. If you have a non-working spouse, or I shouldn't say non-working, but a non-income generating spouse, maybe is a better way of saying that. There is a spousal IRA, which means only one of the 2 people needs to work in the household, and both get to max out their IRAs as long as you have either 12 or 14,000, depending on how old you are, income there. So that's a way. It was obviously whenever they came out with the spousal IRA, they said it was unfair for a non-income generating spouse out there, so they loosened those rules. A lot of people don't know that. In addition to the traditional and the Roth, you have a SEP IRA, which is self-employed. So if anybody out there opens their own side business, you can put away up to 20 to 25%, depending on the rules and depending how your business is structured, which is a pretty significant chunk of change. I'm big on Roth because I'd rather pay my taxes now than later, but the SEP IRA only has a traditional version. It helps you save in taxes now. So even though I'm even though I prefer Roth over traditional IRA, I do have a traditional IRA out there that I will have to take RMDs from down the road, that sort of thing. Also, there's a beneficiary IRA. So some of you maybe have been exposed to this. So if say it's a parent passes away and passes an IRA down to you, there's a specific schedule that you'll have to take out the required minimum distributions from. But you can also end up with an inherited IRA. You can't just put that into your own IRA because it has its own set of rules. So when you think of getting older and it getting more, your financial situation getting more complex, it's not uncommon to end up with 8 to 10 different accounts from all these different things. And there's rules that does not allow you to combine them. Okay, a Roth conversion is where you take the traditional IRA and convert it over to a Roth. When you do so, you're going to end up owing taxes. So the traditional IRA money, obviously you got a tax break when you put it in, and you have to pay those taxes to convert it over. So when you think of when should I do an Roth IRA conversion, well, generally right away is the answer because markets tend to go up over time. However, you could also look at it from if you are sitting there contemplating a Roth IRA conversion and the market does a nosedive, then that's the time to convert because that's where you save the most in taxes. So, there are good sides to the sell-offs when we get them. Hopefully, we don't see a sell-off like we've had. But if we do, say there's a second wave or an aftershock of the COVID-19, or there's another strain that comes out that forces the economy closed again, or we choose to close the economy or whatever, and we get the big move down, that would be the time to make that conversion. Otherwise, you're going to end up paying more in taxes. But again, if you wait for the train that never comes, we'll go straight up for 10 years, and then you'll pay double what you would have if you'd just done it right away. So I advise folks mostly just do it right away. A backdoor Roth IRA, if you make too much, so combined income of basically $200,000 between you and your spouse. If you make more than that, then you're in a situation where you can't put directly into a Roth IRA. You make too much, so therefore you put in your traditional IRA and you convert to a Roth. Obviously, that does not work if you have a situation where you already have an existing IRA, and beneficiary IRAs don't count. But the others do. So let's talk to somebody before you make the backdoor Roth setup because there are rules that go with that. Okay, and the last one I'll talk about are the what's a 401k rollover. So the 401k rules are is when you're with an employer, you have to stay with your 401k. So if you're working for, say, Dell, because Dell's right here in Round Rock. So if you work for Dell, and you work for them for 20 years, you're putting in your monthly amount into your 401k, and it's building up over time, and then you either retire, leave Dell for good, which is kind of the theme here. We call them Dellionaires. Basically, max out your IRA for your working time at Dell. You'll be a millionaire and you're fine. Or you leave for somebody else. Micron's also got a big presence here, so you switch over to Micron. Now, what you do with that 401k is up to you. You can leave it with your previous company, which if you like their investment options or you just don't do the paperwork, that's what's going to happen. It'll stay there. If you want to move it to your new company, so it's all in one place, then you simply transfer it to the new company, and the new company holds those assets in that 401k. When a 401k moves, it goes to cash. It sells everything that's in it, and the cash moves. There's no tax consequences for that, because you're inside a 401k, like you're inside an IRA. The assets don't move. Like if you transfer a brokerage account, just the assets move. But in a 401k, it sells to cash, goes to your new 401k, and then you reset it up again with your new employer. Or your third option is to roll it over into an IRA for yourself. If you roll it over into an IRA for yourself, you simply call your previous employer and say, I would like to roll it over. And generally in a phone call, they will either roll direct to your account, like a TDA or Schwab account or Fidelity or wherever you have it set up. But you have to have an IRA account set up. And then the money simply transfers over. It transfers over as cash. You don't have any of the holdings that were in your 401k. And then you set it up from scratch there. If you do that, they may transfer it direct, or they may send you a check in the mail. That's okay to get a check in the mail. you have 60 days to basically send that check in and get it deposited. That's the 60-day rollover, if you've heard those terms. So if you have a Roth component, so say you put in your traditional 401k, and then after you worked at Dell, and they had a Roth 401k option, so you went 50-50 or you went all Roth, or it doesn't matter. So you have the two different components. They will send you two different checks in the mail, or do two different direct transfers. So so it's pretty slick, pretty easy. Once that gets over to your new account, then you can invest it however you want. So that's how the 401k rollovers work. What you do with the actual funds there, you have in a traditional IRA, you basically have the full spectrum of your options there. You can do individual stocks and bonds, you can do index funds, you can do private equity, you can do alternate investments. You can buy a house in your IRA. Never done it, wouldn't try it, because you have to, there's all kinds of rules that go with it, but you can do it, and people have done it. But you have more investment options with your own IRA, plus the fees are less. When you're in a 401k, you generally have a slew of fees. There's administrator fees, and of course they have you in mostly mutual funds, some index funds, all of which have a little slice. So a bunch of hands in your money, which I don't like, a bunch of hands in the money. I like either zero hands in the money or one hand in the money, sort of investing. So let's see, some stuff popped up. Yeah, Vanguard, your bigger names generally will go direct. Fidelity's the only one that wants to have, my experience is they have sent you a check in the mail, which you can do that. You simply endorse it and send it in. All right, we had a lot of actions there right around the closing time of this trade. So for WRTC, so let's refresh ourselves on what's going on there. All right, click on the 1 minute today version, spread this out a little bit. Okay, so put the cursor over 850 and run it up and find the most favorable price at 850, so where the green starts. So this is a short, so it'd be the bottom of the green right there at 850. So a little bit lower. 739 is the price I'll give you there at 850. Again, it's the most favorable. So the good news is for, let's see, who was this? Burner. Good news that you held your upper stop during the first 20 minutes. The bad news is your trade has to be profitable. And the entry point was down at 720, so that would be a loss on the trade. So therefore, unfortunately, doesn't qualify as a winner. So no winner today. If you have any questions about how that works, then you can put it in the chat now or contact me later. As far as the SPY, SPY is right there at even. So it went green for a little while and then is back down. NASDAQ's currently in the green and the Dow's down just a little bit. So that's where we are for the day. Tough to tell how things are going to happen. There's going to be a lot of ugly headlines throughout the week, obviously with the social unrest. We'll probably hear very little about more about the astronauts unless it's bad news. And then I think it's pretty quiet for earnings this week. So we'll see how it all plays out. But that's it. That's all I have for today. So thanks for listening in. We'll see you tomorrow at the same time. Have a good one.